This is me. I am a practitioner, which means I passed the fundamentals exam and 2 specialist exams. To get the master, you need to have 10 years of experience. Master level is the only level with an experience requirement. The others have kind of experience guidelines. So with that, I will turn it over to our CDMP master for his introduction.
Hi, I'm Devin. I am a CDMP master, which means I've passed the fundamental exam and 2 specialist exams at 80% or higher. And those were data modeling and design, also master data management. And I've been in the industry for long enough. I started off as a software engineer, have about 30 years experience in data architecture, data management, data governance as a software engineer, and then data warehouse architect, BI consultant for several Fortune 500 companies, and also in executive management. And I am located in San Francisco, California.
Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about in the content section, which we're getting to. The QR code is for our article. This contains all the information that we're going to talk through, as well as some additional tips. And it would be really helpful for you to bookmark specifically the section where it walks through the breakdown of the content on the exam, and specifically the percentage assigned to each chapter. So that is my main tip for you guys in terms of studying, is to focus on the most important content, which is outlined in this article, along with study tips. The book is the ebook. Please buy it or borrow it from a friend or even the library in order to study. It is absolutely going to be your best reference for the CDMP fundamentals, as well as the specialist exams that Devin and I mentioned. We're currently on V2 revised. However, you can still pass the test with V2, the non-revised version. Yeah, anything to add, Devin?
No, we're going to talk about the ebook as well, right?
Yes, we recommend the ebook. Before we get into that, the format of the exam, it's 100 questions. You'll have 90 minutes to answer unless you buy the English as a second language version of the exam, which you should absolutely do if that applies to you. In which case, you will receive an additional 20 minutes. And I believe they also let you use a translator plugin. So the exams are only offered in English right now. I know that's something Dama International really value, like the international community. So I know they've talked a lot about translations. So that might be coming in the future. But for now, it's an English test, but you get extra time and a translation widget if that applies. So that's the first thing. Then, in terms of the test taking experience, you can use one book. Dama defines that as one iteration of book, either the physical ebook or the ebook or your notes. So you can't use any combination of those. However, you can take notes in your physical book or your ebook. In fact, they encourage annotation so that you can have those notes for your reference as you're taking the test. Did I hit it? Anything else, Devin?
No, that's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then what we like to tell people, if they're going to use the ebook, to think about that device as the primary device. When you're sitting for the exam, it uses a plugin called Honor Lock to monitor you as you take the test. It's essentially AI proctored, which is great because it means you can take the exam at any time. You don't have to schedule it with a human proctor. And then if there's any kind of discrepancy, then Honor Lock will flag the recording and then they'll send it to a human for review. But I honestly don't really hear about that happening very much. So anyway, as you're taking the test, Honor Lock will lock down where your test is located. So Dama then says you need to have a second device. So not an external monitor, literally a second computer, tablet, or Kindle with the ebook on that device. And you do not have to run Honor Lock on the second device. We call it the primary device because that's the one that you're going to be using to look up answers and things like that. They will not know if you have disconnected it from the internet, but there is no reason to cheat. It's bad karma. You can definitely pass this test. But yeah, it's an honor code thing because there's not like an integration where it can look at both your screens at once. Yeah, so they do say if you use the ebook on another computer, it's just like you're on your honor. There's an honor code that you will sign as part of the test. Definitely be considerate and turn off the Wi-Fi on that device. No, I don't think you need to show your PDF either. So it really is on your Scout's honor to do good when you sit for this. Part of the reason why we say prepare for having the ebook on your quote unquote primary device is because it is really difficult to actually transfer the ebook to another device. Dama has put restrictions on the ebook. So if you do try to transfer it, you will lose access to the notes that you've taken on the PDF. So just go ahead and plan now to borrow a second laptop from a friend. Sometimes people can use their work devices, sometimes they can't. It just depends on the security measures that your organization has in place around downloading plugins. You do need to have the webcam on while you're taking the test, obviously. And HonorLock will use your webcam and it will also monitor your screen. So another important thing to keep in mind is you need to get the test taking laptop has to have those capabilities as well.
There's a question about, do you need to show the PDF you use? I'm not really sure what that means because the PDF is on the second screen. When HonorLock system essentially makes you take a round with your camera of the entire room so they can see that there's nothing there, you will obviously also show the secondary device through your camera to the application. They won't be able to integrate and be able to monitor which applications you have on that. But as we said, I think we've gone enough on this. The bottom line is, please don't cheat.
Yeah, there's really no reason to do it. It's a very straightforward test, and it's really bad karma if you do. It ruins it for the community, I guess, is another thing to consider. So hopefully that addresses everybody's questions. Michael, I don't really understand your question about general recommendation. I guess maybe this is like the ebook thing. We definitely recommend using the ebook. And that's because of the Control F functionality. Don't just think about Control F in questions, but also answer choices. The specifics are more likely to be in the answer choice, so you're more likely to get a hit if you're trying to decide between two that seem close. So we recommend the ebook. You cannot have the open book in the PC and do Alt-Tab because HonorLock will lock down your browser. It will not allow you to move from the Chrome window where you're taking the exam. So one device is a no-go if you have the ebook. And you don't need to schedule the exam. You can take it at any time. Clean desk, taking it from home. No, I think you're fine if you have shelves. You'll be on camera the whole time. So having books nearby, not a problem. But yeah, I would make sure your workspace doesn't have like extraneous notes laying around. I think if you're in an office, that's fine. They understand. Okay, great. So let's move on. This is a bit of information about the test. I think we've covered this. It's mostly pricing info. So you can expect to spend $311 USD for the test. That is inclusive of the cost of the exam and also the HonorLock fee. The book costs about $95 on Amazon right now. So that's the cheapest place to buy the hard copy book. Okay, Devin, do you want to introduce the different levels?
Yes, as we talked about the different certification levels, and the first level is the CDMP Associate, which you can reach that level if you pass the exam at 60% passing rate. And then also if you have industry experience about 6 months to 5 years. So that will give you the CDMP Associate certification, which is great, which is the starting point. To get to the next level, you have to take the fundamental exam at the 70% passing rate, and then also take 2 specialist exams of the 7 available exams that they have. And that would be also at 70% passing rate. And you need to have industry experience about 2 to 10 years. Then finally, there is the CDMP Master certification level. And for that, you have to take the fundamental exam and pass it at 80%. And then 2 specialist exams again at 80%. And then you need to have a minimum of 10 years of experience in the industry.
Yeah. And just to reiterate what I said earlier, the industry experience is recommended for those first 2 levels, but it is required for the master level. So everybody, when you take the fundamentals exam and you pass it with above a 60, you will be awarded the CDMP Associate. And then to progress, you're going to need to take the 2 specialist exams. And your minimum score depends on which level you're aiming for. If you are aiming for the CDMP practitioner, you need to score at least a 70 across all 3 tests, the fundamentals and the 2 specialist exams of your choice. And then for the master, you need to score an 80% across fundamentals and the 2 specialist exams. And then you need to do a resume review. And how long did that take, Devin?
They're not the fastest body, I would say, officiating body. It took about, I would say, 3 months. It took 3 months to get the actual certification. Is that the question?
Yes, it's a little bit of a lengthy process. It's a little bit of a wait, but then you get to call yourself a master. And there's only a couple hundred masters in the entire world. So it's a very meaningful certification. There is just one more level. So let's chat about this one a little bit and then we'll go to the next.
Yeah, so this is the CDMP Fellow certification level, and which is the highest possible certification that you could get from Dharma. This requires 25 years of minimum industry experience, and you need to be a stalwart in the industry, which means that you need to have published papers, you need to be very active in the Dharma organization, You need to be contributing to data management fields and be speaking at keynotes, at conferences, and so on, and just generally show that you're a trusted advisor and a thought leader in this field. Then also, of course, you have to be a CDMP master and you need to have the active Dharma membership. At this point, only 3 fellows in the entire world, CDMP fellows. So this is how challenging it is to get to this level. Nothing is impossible. So
True. Maybe we have a future Dhamma fellow among us today. Who knows?
yeah.
Cool. And then we got the question, this is a great question. Does the certification expire? Yes, it's only valid for 3 years. And then after that, you must keep up your Dhamma membership in order to quote unquote renew it. And that's specifically Dhamma International. So if you have a local chapter, that's great, but that doesn't count. Yeah, so that's technically how you renew is you pay them for the annual membership. And another thing to consider is that if you are interested in getting the practitioner level or the master level, you need to take those specialist exams within 3 years of taking your fundamentals exam. Don't be like me. I let my fundamentals exam lapse. It was like 4 years later, I decided I was going to go for the practitioner. And then I had to redo fundamentals. So it was fine. Honestly, it's not the worst. But yeah, just try to take them all within 3 years. That's the only way to be eligible. And also make sure you're using a personal email address, not your work email, because you'll need to use the same email address in order to get the badge automatically. Obviously, Dhamma will work with you if you did switch your email address, but the only way it knows to link your exams together is if you use the same email. That was another mistake that I made because I was like, oh, I'm doing this certification for work. I'll just put in my work email. And then, of course, I changed jobs like 6 months later. Learn from my mistakes. Be smart. Do as I say, not as I do. The exams expire within 12 months of buying them. Yeah, so definitely go ahead and invest when you're ready because you can definitely take it within a year. That's too long to study. You're going to forget what you learned if you study for a whole year.
You can take the exam as many times as you want. I'm not really sure how much is the retake fee. I believe it's not $300. It's a little less than that.
Yeah, it's a $100 discount.
Yeah, it's about $200.
Yeah, 211 to be precise. This is my situation. So I have the practitioner badge, but I have master level scores. So I'm just waiting to hit that eligibility requirement in terms of the 10 years of experience. And then I'll submit my resume, and I think they'll just upgrade me to a master. I believe that's how it works. You don't have to take more tests. If you have the 80% minimum score on your 3 exams, then you just submit your resume. Just to reiterate, and I think this is a common point of confusion among the community, those hexagons, that's the names of the levels. So the levels are associate, practitioner, and master. And then there are 2 different types of tests. There's the fundamentals exam, which is the one that we're talking about today. And then there's the specialist exams, which there's 7 options for those. So there is no like specialist level. There's no associate test or a practitioner test. The levels are one thing and the tests are another thing. I don't know if Dhamma really need to go around beating the drum about that because it's a bit confusing potentially. Okay, so let's go to the next area, which is what's tested on the CDMP Fundamentals exam. So it's 14 chapters. The chapters, as you can see, are weighted quite differently. So some chapters, there's 11 questions on average on the exam, and other chapters, there's as low as 2% or 2 questions on average on the exam. What we like to tell people is if you are really trying to speed your preparation, one thing you might consider is really focusing your study time on these 7 chapters, which collectively comprise 70% of the content on the exam. And conveniently, these chapters are the 7 options for the specialist exams. So if you want to advance to those practitioner and master levels, then you'll need to understand at least 2, minimum 2 of these chapters really completely anyway. And the best way to prepare for the specialist exams, I think, is really to, again, have that strong foundation from having passed the fundamentals exam. However, the ebook is still going to be your best bet for your one book, in my opinion.
And then the question about the easiest specialist exam, really, it depends. Firstly, when you take the fundamental exam, you will see you have a natural aptitude towards some areas over the others. Some people may generally be attracted to data modeling, they find that fascinating, and so want to invest more. So think about it also, and think about it from a career perspective as well. Are you working in those fields? Are you going to be working in those fields as a data modeler, for example? or you're going to be into data management, master reference data management. So deep dive into those then and your aptitude, what you are naturally more inclined to be familiar with or interested in. So factor all those things. Play the long game is what I say for the specialist exams.
Yeah, just stay away from the metadata management specialist exam.
Yeah. Unless it's changed now. It has a lot of these ANSI ISO codes and all of those like standards names. So
Yeah.
it can become a little confusing, but that's the work that you want to do, then study up in that.
Honestly, it's not a test. Sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but it's not a test of metadata management. It's a test of creating metadata standards. So I don't think it really measures what Dama thinks it's measuring. I think it's just like straight up a bad test. Anyway, don't do that one. But the other ones I've heard are fine. Okay, for the 10 years for a master level pass, yes, data analyst would count. They're looking for anything related to data or technology. I was chatting with Peter Aiken about this, and he was like, it could be you worked at an IT help desk in college, or you tutored people in your computer science class. Like you studied computer science, that would count as years of experience. Research, I'm not sure. I think it would need to be like something that you could validate with like a job potentially. Again, something you put on your resume. So,
Yeah, if you're
yeah,
doing
I think,
research in the data as part of an institution like a college, a university, and you were a research scientist in that database management lab or something, absolutely that should count. But now that you're making me think, do they think of that as industry experience or is it going to be like purely academic institution? That's a good question. We should get back.
yeah. No, I think it would be fine. I will say, like, we had a colleague that worked with us who was a math PhD, and they did not count that as relevant experience. They were like, that is too different from like data industry experience. It has to be like technology oriented, I think, for it to count as relevant experience. Okay, to optimize your score in this exam, you need to answer the questions in an average of 54 seconds or less. Or if you're taking the ESL exam, which again gives you that extra 20 minutes, then you'll need to answer your questions in 66 seconds or less on average. There's no penalty for getting an answer wrong, so you should always guess if you don't know the correct answer. Obviously, try to eliminate obviously wrong answer choices before you guess. And also, you'll be allowed to keep a piece of paper with you as you're taking the test, a blank sheet of paper, and you can use that to write down the numbers of the questions that you might struggle with. And the rationale for that is because Dama recently, like within the last year or two, they changed their exam platform provider. So the paper and the writing things down is to make it even because the way the exam used to be, there was like a flag functionality within the test itself. So you could flag questions, which was helpful, but now it will show you whether or not you've answered a question, but you can't add a flag. So that's why they let you write down just the question numbers for the questions that you want to look back at. So what I recommend is take the test as fast as you can. And then with all the time that's left at the end, then go back and check answers that you've written down as potentially difficult. The difficulty of the questions on this test is highly disparate. So you'll get some questions that literally are, what does GDPR stand for? There is no way that you should be getting that wrong. And then you'll get other questions that are occasionally scenario based questions that require a lot of reading or like a long list or identifying a specific ISO or ANSI code, like for metadata, for example. So definitely just make sure you're watching your time management. Again, my strategy was just to go through it all once. That way I knew that I at least answered everything and then go back with the time at the end. I had an hour. Like, I think I did the first set of questions in maybe 35 minutes. So then I had the remaining time to really double check everything to try to optimize my score. So that's one approach. I don't know if you did it differently at all.
No, I just steamrolled through the questions and then I had a lot of time. But I'm a natural procrastinator, unfortunately. So I always wait till the last moment. But this was good because then I had to diligently go back to look at like one of them and see that I had answered. I got more time, but there are different strategies. Some people like to spend the entire time, like the entire 50 seconds. But I would say speed through as many as you can, skip the ones that you cannot and revisit them, and then use some of our strategies like intelligent guessing eliminate the ones which are absolutely absurd. Like the 5 options, it's a multiple choice question. And
Yeah.
the answers are like really absurd. They're like out there. So you can automatically eliminate them. Oftentimes I see the answer is embedded in the question itself. You'll see a phrase or word in the question which maps to one of the answers. So that might be the right answer. Then again, we've seen like the longest answer sometimes is like the right one. So these are the kind of strategies you can use if you were to guess, if you had to guess.
Yeah. There's another question Elise asked. Is there a way to prioritize the questions that you go back to answer? I didn't do this on the fundamentals exam because, like I said, I ended up with a ton of time and I think I just checked everything. But on the specialist exams, I did not have as much time. They are much harder, they require a lot more reading. So, what I did, and maybe this helps with the prioritization aspect, I wrote down the number of the question and then I put a letter next to the question, an E for easy, an M for medium, and an H for hard. Because all questions are weighted the same, then I prioritized checking the easy questions first because I figured I had the best chance of getting those correct. And so I kind of left the hard questions like I might be able to find my way to the correct answer or I might not. I kind of deprioritized those in favor of making sure I was nailing the easy questions. Yes, so make sure if you get an easy question, don't get it wrong. Yeah, hopefully that helps if you're thinking about how to manage your time and answer the questions that you have left. And it will submit automatically at the end. So if you let it run out of time, it's not going to penalize you. I think I did that for all of them, honestly. Even if you don't think you need it, I would spend the whole time trying to optimize your score because you're going to be really mad if you like miss a level by 1 point. Obviously, that happens where people are like 1 point away from a master and happens to Devin. So you want to ensure that you're using your full time. Yes, you can edit the answers before you've submitted the test.
I can just say good luck. Do plenty of test questions, as many as you can. You will get a flavor of the kind of question that you get when you buy the exam. You will get test prep questions as well. And just highlight things that you think are important. And then look at the top level where they have things like goals, principles, essential concepts. Focus on the essential concepts section the most. That's where most of the answers are going to come from.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Devin. Your
Good
perspective
luck.
was really
Good luck,
helpful.
everyone. Bye-bye.